What's up, my dudes? So this video is going to be covering Twinking in Classic WoW, specifically level 19 Twinking. Now I'm doing this for many reasons, the most prominent of which is the fact that, Twinking is just super fun. I think you guys would enjoy it if you haven't tried it before. In vanilla WoW, from my experience and from the other expansions that I've played in, 19 Twinking specifically is quite the popular bracket. And there's a couple reasons for that. Probably the main one is that, they're easier to level, easier to gear. Although now being aware that the bracket is so popular, the community often hikes up the prices on certain pieces. So you definitely will not be hard pressed to find items on the auction house that are bind unequipped for Twinks that are super expensive. The classic example for something like that is Shadowfang. You get it from Shadowfang Keep, really low drop chance. It's bind unequipped and it's best in slot for rogues, so it just really makes for a very expensive item. Some people consider that since items are so expensive for level 19s that many people actually switch to 29s and 39s and so on for that reason alone. I actually think that the main reason people switch off is really due to people wanting a different challenge in Twinking. There's so much more than just 19 Twinking, of course, from what we're covering. I love 19 Twinking, and I've only really ever 19 Twinked, but yeah, there's just a whole sort of different realm of possibilities from all these other brackets. So I recommend that if you are really into Twinking, if you really get into it, to try these other brackets if you haven't before. And there's definitely going to be a community for it. There always is. One of the most prominent points about 19 Twinking and just Twinking in general in Classic WoW is that, of course, you won't have the ability to stop your XP. This to me just makes Twinking so much more interesting, adds like a lot of culture to it in the sense that you're gonna have to plan your way through as you make your Twink. If you want it to be the best of the best, you're gonna have to do things like plan ahead on the quests that you need, like the level requirements for quests. You're gonna have to be aware of so that when you level, you do them, making the least amount of experience possible. That as well as just exploring locations that you're going to have to go to in the future. Like, for example, if you're a druid, you're going to have to go at some point to Fellwood to farm out Timber Maw reputation, probably with someone's main. Someone's going to have to help you with that, obviously. But same with, like, Stranglethorn Vale, I would go to there. And if you plan on doing world PvP, yeah, you're just going to have to explore those kinds of areas. For me, I would personally, really early on, just before even questing, I think, I would just run around to all kinds of different places that I think would be relevant for me to go to in the future and explore there. Now, with all that said, it's going to help you big time to have a level 60. Just because you're going to be wanting to have the right amount of gold to help with your Twink, you might want to farm for certain consumables. You're going to need to do things for your Twink that you wouldn't be able to do just alone, I think, on your 19 Twink. That said, I wouldn't personally recommend it, but you can just make a level 19 Twink and make your way without a 60, but it's just going to be much harder for you. So again, I recommend to have at least a main level 60 character to help your way through. You might now be curious about like which classes are viable. For example, there's a thing like spell power rogues. There's just some interesting sort of builds that you could potentially put yourself into, because I would argue that all classes are viable. It's just a matter of your play style, how you gear them, how their build is. There's a lot to do that people might not be totally aware of at first, and so that's something to keep in mind. And I can go deeper into this if you guys want me to, if you're down for that kind of thing in another video. Another thing to expect is that you're going to have pieces on your faction that the other faction might not have necessarily. So, like your classic Seal of Rin versus Seal of Sylvanas. You may be aware of something on the Horde side called the Inferno Robe, which actually in vanilla doesn't give you 19 spell power like it started to give in Wrath of the Lich King, but instead it gives you 23 fire spell damage. That piece would probably be good for like maybe mages if you wanted to get like a fire build for a mage or something, but besides that, it doesn't make as much of an impact as it normally would if you were playing in like Wrath or Beyond, for example. But yeah, guys, you can expect the classic pieces like Arena Grandmaster Trinket from the Gurbashi Arena, the Lucky Fishing Hat from the Stranglethorn Vale Booty Bay, fishing event, Shadowfang and Assassin's Blade, the Furball Medicine Pouch, all these things, man. Get excited, guys, because it's going to be good stuff. You're also going to have your PvP vendor items from each faction. They're going to have equivalent stats. Of course, the majority of the items that you're going to be wanting to get are not faction-based. They're typically either bind unequipped items or items that you get from specific dungeons like Dead Mines or Wailing Caverns or what have you. The footage that you see in this video is actually footage of my guild that I set up on a Wrath of the Lich King server. If you guys have any interest, it's on Warmain WoW, and we have a guild of over 900 people. Of course, half of the guild is inactive. But anyways, main thing is Vanilla WoW Twinking is coming. And if you know anything about like Hikari gear, I've heard that in Classic WoW, they're not going to be possible to get. They're basically like these level 30 or 40 stat-based sort of items that come from steel lockboxes that don't have a level requirement. So you'd technically be able to have it on your Twink without a problem. And for me, I'm just not a big fan of those items just because it would make like the Lucky Fishing Hat and some other classic sort of pieces obsolete, and I'm not a fan. But I will say, you know, there's some things in 19 Twinking where it's really fun to min-max, and I always get shit on when I talk about min-maxing in Vanilla WoW at all. But I think in 19 Twinking, it's a really fun thing to experiment with. You might want to consider like which race will be best for your class of choice. And if you want like best in slot gear, sometimes you're going to have to just concede to having to purchase an item off of the auction house that's a ton of gold. I don't know, I kind of like that. I'm into that sort of thing. This is a super fun sort of side thing to get into for Classic WoW, and I think it has a lot of potential. So anyways, thanks for sticking around, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.